Welcome back, everyone. We'll learn the Daf Yomi, Tractate Shabbos. We are one page ahead of everyone. So we are holding at 34A1 of 34, and we're holding the Mishnah. We ended off yesterday with the story of Rabbi Ben Yochai. We'll start the Mishnah. We're still in chapter 2. B'mem Adlikin is the name of the chapter. The Mishnah, let's say about half the page, not half the page, about 10 lines from the top. So, three things a person needs to say in his house, Erev Shabbos, Im Chashecha, right before it gets dark. Isartem, Yiravtem, Adlikus, did you give Meiser, tithing, the Chala, do a Foshas Chala, did Iruv. Actually, today we have to do Iruv Tavshilin because we're going into from a Yom Tov to Shabbos. So, in order to be able to cook on Yom Tov for Shabbos, usually on Yom Tov you're only allowed to cook for that day. In order to cook from Yom Tov for Shabbos, you have to do Iruv Tavshilin. So a person would ask his wife or his family, Yiravtem, did you give Meiser, Foshas Chala, you tithe Chala, Idliku Saner, did you Iruv, and did you light the candle? Sovik Chashecha, Sovik Chashecha. If it is a doubt whether it's already dark or not, we may not tithe certainly untithed produce. If we're sure that it's untithed, we should not give Meiser, should not do it, because it might be Shabbos already. And we may not immerse vessels in the mikveh. We may not kindle the Shabbos lights. But we may tithe because we're not sure if it was tithed or not. Alvin make an error, timis achamin, and we insulate hot food. How do we know all of the above? The pasuk says, you shall know that there is peace in your tent. You shall command your abode, and you will not sin. Make sure that everything is done in your order, the things that are under your control. Though the rabbi says three things the man has to say, he has to say it pleasantly. He has to do it in a gentle way. So people will accept, will hear you, will listen to you. The famous saying, when you scream, we hear you. When you talk, we'll listen to you. So hearing and listening is two different things. So the same thing over here, we have to talk gently. When you ask these three things, did you give Meiser, and did you tithe? Did you tithe the Chala? Did you do a Foshas Chala? Did you light the candle? Did you do the Eruv? Amar Rav Ashi, in general, this applies to Friday afternoon, where there's pressure in the house. Is more time that is prone to dispute, and to similarly with every Erev Yom Tov, we have to be gentle. We have to be mindful of those who are doing the main work, which is the wives. So we have to be mindful of them, and we have to be very gentle. Shira Halacha says you have to buy something to your wife today. You have to buy jewelry or clothes, something to make her happy. You got to be happy on Yom Tov, and you got to make other people happy. He says, I didn't hear the teaching of Avuna, but I implemented the same idea based on my own reasoning. Common sense. Agufia Kasha, so the Gemara says this is inherently contradictory. So you said three things a person has to say on the eve of Shabbos. Im Chashecha, what does it mean? Just before dark. Im Chashecha in, just before dark. Yes, you should say these things. Savik Chashecha, Savik Eino Chashecha, but whether if there is a doubt whether it's dark or not, then you shouldn't perform these three tasks. But afterwards it says, if there is a doubt whether it is dark or whether it is not dark, we make an Eruv. The two parts of the Mishnah seem to be at odds over whether an Eruv can be made during the twilight period. So the Gemara will answer this difficulty proposed by Rav Abba in the name of Rabbi Menashe, who said, name of Rav. Before doing so, the Gemara cites a menaminik for all the statements made by this Amero in the name of Rabbi Menashe, in the name of Rav, throughout this tractate. Siman begufia zimra tzipora bechavlo de mielosa. A menaminik in itself, a pruning a bird in the rope of wool. We'll see discussions that are related to these words. Amar Rabbi Abba Rabbi Chia bar Ashi. Rabbi Abba said in the name of Rabbi Chia bar Ashi, Amar Rav, in the name of Rav. Loi kashyo, there's no difficulty. Kan be'eruv tchumim, kan be'eruv chatzeros. Here, in the first part of the Mishnah, the Tana deals with eruv tchumim. And here, in the next part of the Mishnah, the Tana deals with eruv chatzeros. The latter type of eruv, the eruv chatzeros, may be established even during twilight, whereas the former type, eruv tchumin, must be established before this time. What's the difference between eruv tchumin and eruv chatzeros? If you look at 27, it says there's a prohibition against walking 2,000 amas from one's place of his residence, although rabbinic in nature, it's rabbinical, still has some scriptural basis. So when one establishes an eruv tchumin by acquiring as his Shabbos residence, by placing food, he walked 2,000, before Shabbos he gets to a place 2,000 amos away, and he places there and food, and that considers the place of his residence, and then from that point now you can walk another 2,000 amos. That's the idea of eruv tchumin. So eruv tchumin should not be done before Shabbos. Eruv chatzeros, on the other hand, is creating sharing a courtyard with other people. So that would be permissible at twilight, right before Shabbos. Okay, so Rava said, two people told someone, go and make an eruv for us on our behalf. One of them, he did the eruv while it was still day. And to the other one, he made the eruv during Ben Hashmoshes, during the twilight period. This one, for whom he had made an eruv while it was still day, eruv Ben Hashmoshes, had his eruv eaten during the subsequent Ben Hashmoshes period. And this one, for whom he had made an eruv during the Ben Hashmoshes period, twilight period, had his eruv eaten after dark. Shneim kona eruv. In such a situation, the eruv took effect for both of them. It says twilight, in 22, it says twilight is judged differently for each of the persons. For the person who had his eruv eaten during twilight, the twilight period is reckoned as night. So he may say his eruv had already taken effect before it was eaten. For the person whose eruv was first made during twilight, this period is reckoned as day, so that we may assume his eruv was in place before the Shabbos began. The Gemara says, "Ma nafshach?" What is your inclination in this matter? If twilight, because the whole idea of twilight zone is you're not sure whether it's day or night. So if you are saying that Ben Hashmoshes is being viewed as daytime, Boso Likne, the last eruv should take effect. Kamal Likne, the first eruv should not take effect, for it was eaten before the Shabbos began. Ve'i Ben Hashmoshes Leilo, when if you're saying that the twilight period is being viewed as nighttime, Kamal Likne, then the first Eruv should take effect. Basra lo likne, and the last Eruv should not take effect since it was not in place as the Shabbos began. The Gemara says Ben Hashmoshes Sveiko. Actually, the twilight period is in doubt whether it's nighttime or daytime. Sveika de Rabban lekulo, and any doubt in matters of rabbinic law is treated leniently. For what reason did the rabbis declare that once it becomes dark, we may not insulate food, even with material that does not increase its heat? How do we know? You have a Shabbos pot, food that you prepared for Shabbos, and you want to keep it hot. So you come back from shul Friday night, you decided not to eat this meal, you want to eat it in the morning. So you're thinking maybe you'll take pillows and blankets to cover it up, so it retains its heat. Says once it becomes dark, we may not insulate, even if it's not something that will increase the heat, just maintains it. Because there was a decree put in place out of concern that perhaps one will cause the pot to boil before insulating it, and thereby transgress the prohibition against cooking on the Shabbos. You can say, maybe I should give it just a little boost of heat, so that my insulation that will follow will contain it, will actually do something, or will keep it hot. So the Rabbi says, don't do insulation, and even though it's not, even if it's not increasing its heat, do not do any insulation. Amar le'abayi yochi, if you say so, Ben Hashmoshes not meaning the sages should have decreed against insulating also during Ben Hashmoshes period, because it might be considered nighttime. Why did they allow insulation during the period of the twilight period? Ordinary pots are still boiling hot during Ben Hashmoshes, and thus there is a little fear that one should heat them up further at this time, because at that time it's still very hot, so there's no concern that people would reheat them. And Rava further said, why did they say you should not insulate food with materials that tend to increase the heat of that which they surround, even during the day, even if it is still daylight, Friday afternoon? Do not insulate with something that is increasing heat. Why? As this decree was put in place out of concern that perhaps one will insulate the food with ash that has a live coal mixed with it. The sages forbade insulating with any heat intensifying material, so you might come to do it with ashes that have live coals in them, and that could lead to desecration of Shabbos by someone touching those coals. Well, it says, perhaps he will rake the coals in the ash, insulating the food, so the food will cook faster. In doing so, he would transgress the prohibition against cooking on the Shabbos. Tanu Rabban ben Hashmoshes, when it comes to the twilight period, Sofek mineu min halayla is possibly comprised of day and night together, part of the day, part of the night. Sofek kuloi min hayom, Sofek kuloi min halayla. There's also a possibility that the twilight period is entirely day, or it's entirely night. Matilin oisa lechomesh neyomin. Because of these uncertainties, we place upon it the stringencies of 2 days. What does that mean, the stringencies of 2 days? The Baita defines this period of uncertainty begins and ends. It says in number 6, we treat Ben Hashmoshes as if it were part of the previous day or part of the following day, depending on which possibility yields the greater stringency. So we take the greater stringency. For example, one may not perform labor during Ben Hashmoshes on Friday during the twilight period for the next day, for for the next day, the Shabbos may have already begun. Maybe it might be Shabbos already. By the same token, one may not perform labor during Ben Hashmoshes on Saturday, for the same day might still prevail. If one does perform melacha during either period, he would be liable to an osham tolui, an offering bought for uncertain violations of the Shabbos. What is considered Ben Hashmoshes? Twilight period. Once the sun is set, as long as the eastern face of the sky is reddened. The bottom of the sky, the part near the horizon, has darkened. But the upper part of the sky has not yet darkened. This is Ben Hashmoshes. Once the upper part of the sky has darkened, and has attained the same color as the bottom of the sky, Zehu Laila. This is considered already nighttime. The twilight period is over. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Once the sun set, Ben Hashmoshes less the time it takes for a man to walk half a mil. How long? Approximately 9 minutes, which is 2,000 amas. 9 minutes will take you to walk half a mil. So from sunset to nighttime, it's really 9 minutes. Rabbi Yossi says no, not like Rabbi Menashe, that it's 9 minutes. He says herafine, like the difference between Ben Hashmoshes, twilight period, and nighttime is like a blink of an eye. Night enters and day departs. It is impossible to determine whether it is day or night. We place upon Ben Hashmoshes the stringencies of 2 days. With reference to what law does this express itself? Ravuna said, Ravuna, the son of Rabbi Yeshua, said, Le'inyan Tumah, it applies with respect to Tumah, respect to impurity. Kedetna, Rosh Neyom Ben Hashmoshes, if one experienced an irregular emission on 2 consecutive days during the Ben Hashmoshes, during the twilight period on each day. Sofek L'Tumah Ule Korban, a doubt exists as to his state of Tumah and as to his liability to an offering. If he saw the emission on just 1 day, and it was during Ben Hashmoshes, Sofek L'Tumah, a doubt exists as to impurity, only not to Korban. The Mishnah expresses the principles that any given stretch of time within Ben Hashmoshes might be comprised of day, night, or day and night together. The statement in itself contradictory. Why? Ben Hashmoshes. You just said, what is Ben Hashmoshes? When is the twilight period? And in answer to the question, you said Mishetishkar Chamu, once the sun is set, and you said Kozman Shepnei Mizrach Ma'adimin, as long as the eastern face of the sky is reddening. Ho yichsi fatachtem lichsi fa'elyon. This implies that later, when the bottom part of the sky has darkened and the upper part of the sky has not yet darkened, lailahu, it is already night. Hadar tono, but afterwards, in the very next words, the Tana teaches hichsi fatachtoid v'lo hichsi fa'elyon. When the bottom of the sky has darkened, but the upper part of the sky has not yet darkened, that's Ben Hashmoshes. That's the twilight period. Amar Rabba Amar Avuda Amar Shmuel Kroi Chusani. Combine the 2 parts of the Brisa together and teach them as one. In other words, Read Rabbi Yehuda's statement this way: Eizu ben Hashmoshes, when is ben Hashmoshes? Mishetishka chamo, it begins once the sun has set. Calls man shepnei mizrach ma'adimim, and continues as long as the eastern face of the sky is reddening. Vehichsif hatachton, and moreover, even when the bottom of the sky has darkened, velo yichsif halyon, and the upper part of the sky has not yet darkened, nami bein hashmoshes, it is also the twilight period. Yichsif halyon, and the upper part of the sky has darkened, veishvar tachton, and has attained the upper and the bottom are now attained the same color. Lilo, this is night, and the period of twilight is over. Rabbi Yosef quoted the following in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, who in turn said it in the name of Shmuel. Achi ketani, teach the Baisa this way: Mishetishka chamo, once the sun has set, calls man shepnei mizrach ma'adimim, as long as the eastern face of the sky is reddening, yom, it is still day. And later, when the bottom of the sky has darkened, and the upper part of the sky has not yet darkened, ben hashmoshes, then it is twilight period. Still later, when the upper part of the sky has darkened, and has attained the same color as the bottom of the sky, lilo, this is night. And in statement made earlier or elsewhere, each follows his own line of reasoning. The itmar shil ben hashmoshes bechamo, the length of ben hashmoshes, how much is it? How much is the length of the twilight period? Amar Rabba, Amar Shmuel. Rabbi said in the name of Rabbi, in the name of Shmuel, Shloisho chal kemil, it lasts the time needed to walk 3 parts of a mil. We said before the 2 parts is half a part of a mil is 9 minutes. Where it's a shloisho chalke, last the time needed 3 parts of a mil. My shloisho chalke mil. So what is 3 parts of a mil? The Gemara says, if you will say it means 3 half meals, name a mil umechza. Just Rabbi should have said a mil and a half, a distance of a mil and a half. A more simple way of stating the amount. Rather, you might suggest that it means 3/3 of a mil. Name a mil. But if so, Abba should have said a mil. Rather, by process of elimination, it must mean 3/4 of a mil, which would be 18 minutes. The time it takes to walk 3/4 of a mil is somewhere between 13.5 and 18 minutes, depending on which figure for the length of time it takes to walk a full mil is accepted. Whatever you're accepting as a time that would take you to walk a full mil, then it would be about between 13.5 to 18 minutes. Okay, next. The Gemara resumes presenting Rav Yosef's alternative view on the length of Bein Hashmoshes. Rav Yosef said in the name of Rav Yehuda, who said in turn in the name of Shmuel, Shnei chelkei mil ben hashmoshes, less 2 parts of a mil. What is Shnei chelkei mil? Ma Shnei chelkei mil? Ilei matri pago mil. If you say it means 2 halves of a mil, lema mil, then Rav Yosef should simply have stated a mil. Rather, you may suggest it means 2/4 of a mil. Lema chatzi mil. Rav Yosef should have said half a mil. Ella, rather, he must. It must be trei tilti mil. Ella, rather, he must mean trei tilti mil, 2/3 of a mil. This is approximately equivalent to between 12 and 16 minutes, depending on which figure one uses for calculating the time needed to walk a full mil. Would be the difference between twilight period to nighttime. Bruchim to you. We finish the page of 34. God willing, we'll see you
Sunday.
on Sunday. I'm having another short video on halacha, but otherwise we'll continue with the learning on Sunday.